Hi, how are you? Melanie Taylor here from the Holy Grail, and I wanted to create this video of the lineage and legacy of Venus and the interconnectedness of that lineage of the Rose of Venus of the Magdalene lineage, to share with those who are working with me, but also to offer it to others who may be interested in it as well. So you're very welcome to this video, introducing you to the energy and the essence of Venus as a guide and as a luminary in our skies, in our hearts, and also in our lives. This is, as I say, an introduction, and as you deepen your connection with Venus, it will unveil more and more magic and deeper mysteries for yourself and your journey. And a little disclaimer, I suppose, before we start, is that I'm not an astrologer, but I do love astrology. I've been quietly learning about astrology for years since I was a teenager, but and I've learned most of what I've learned through Venus, through my own interaction and connection with her and her strong presence within my own charts, and also within the trainings that I have participated in over the last number of years, 6 or 7 years now, working with particularly with the Rose lineage and the Magdalene lineage, and I'll be sharing some of those with you now. So it's an integration of my own work and body of work, and that of specifically three beautiful women that I just want to anchor in with me here now, because they really have been so influential and inspirational for me on my journey, and they're really gorgeous wisdom keepers of this deeply embodied work and of Venus. And the first being Chloe Mercer, who is the gatekeeper and wisdom keeper of the Sacred Rose Mystery Schools, Mystery School even. And I've been working with Chloe for a number of years. She's just an incredible, beautiful sister and mentor, and has this incredibly beautiful relationship with the Magdalene and with the Rose and with Venus. And I just can't recommend her highly enough. And I'm so grateful for our connections and the weavings that have occurred already and will continue to, I'm sure, as well. Another woman that I wanted to share about, because I'll be mentioning her so many times in this video, is Ariel Gutman. And she really brought the Venus Star Point wisdom to the fore of our conscious awareness over the last couple of decades. And yeah, she's a huge body of work around the Venus Star Point, which is an incredible body of work. And I just signpost her there now to share her work for you to go and maybe explore her work if you feel called to. And then finally, Danielle of the 12th space. She's an astrologer, beautiful woman, Venusian being, poet, mother, writer. She's just incredible. She really inspires me with her work and her words. And I've just learned a lot from her as well. So all that to say, the themes and the threads, the archetypes, are all here to invite you into a deeper interpretation of Venus and of this lineage, through the wisdom of your own heart and body. And I really love how Venus really seems to draw in hearts and minds from all these different ologies and places and spaces, and just really reiterates the interconnectedness of all life. And I feel like we've lost that over more modern times and more modern eras, where we kind of put everything into a little box, and I either follow this and you follow that, and we're kind of divided and separated in that sense. Whereas if we go far enough back, these threads of interconnectedness are really very apparent and important to see all these different sides, and the multifacetedness of all life. So let's begin. This beautiful picture you'll probably recognize as a very famous painting, The Birth of Venus. And I just wanted to share this as I share the golden themes that weave with Venus. And as I say, they fall into main categories that we've seen through different ologies for thousands and thousands of years, whether that's anthropology or mythology or astrology or cosmology. All these different beautiful lenses, as I say, they often refer back to these main themes of Venus, which are love, romance, beauty and art, value, both inner and outer value, worth and worthiness, desire, sensuality. And these are all deeply woven within our relationship with ourselves and others and of the world around us, and they're really anchored in the primordial feminine principles. And this is, as I say, I love Venus because I feel Venus is such an important and adept teacher for our times, because here we find ourselves at this time in our evolution as a collective where we are really remembering and restoring our potential for true connection and what that really means. And a lot of the times it's mentioned or it's anchored in, as true love or pure love, which I do feel it is, but it's quite hard to even navigate that because our concept of love is quite distorted. But she is helping us remember and restore this potential for true connection with ourselves and life itself. And in that, then we're really bringing back online our emotional intelligence, our EQ. That emotional quotient has been like recalibrated with our physical somatic body, sensory body, with our energetic body, and bodies, and our IQ as well. And it's just this beautiful true beauty, real beauty of our true nature being remembered, and our true expression as individuals and collectively, remembering that richness of our experience that is available to us that we kind of seem to have disconnected from in lots of different ways, because the ways that we've been living for so long have been anchored in inorganic ways where we may have been seeking these riches outside of ourselves. But now we are remembering that the body, our holy grail, this temple, this vessel that we find ourselves in, is an integral part of this richness and beauty and love. And when we are in tune with our full sensory perception and body, we are in tune with our whole being, and our innate wisdom, and intelligence, and that of the world around us. So let's remember Venus through the different layers, that she shares with us. And the first one that I wanted to share with you is through the anthropological lens. And here you'll see ancient art, that is so beautiful. These are all images of different clay and stone pieces that are thousands and thousands of years old. So really, like, everyone's perception of history of where we came from is quite different, and a lot of people live in the last 2,000 years. I kind of feel like I'm in the last 5, 7, 10,000 years, and then even beyond that, we can see in these images that some of these pieces of work are and art are from 35,000 years old. They're 16,000 years old, 23,000 years old, 24,000 years old. They're really, really reminding us of the lineage of how far it goes back. And in this ancient art, and then through architecture as well, through the sacred sites and temples, and even modern art and architecture, it's still seen these Venus connections and nods to Venus and nods to the geometries and the sacred teachings of Venus. It's been very prolific throughout all time, and this lineage is of the ancient primordial mysteries of nature. And of the feminine, of that, creation model and blueprint. And it's innate within us, as I say, since the beginning of time. Now, the next picture I want to share with you is this beautiful image of Inanna. And here is where I suppose we'll start the mythological remembrance or part of this video. So this image are taken from stonework from ancient Sumeria, where Venus was known as Inanna, or the embodiment. Inanna was known as the embodiment of Venus. And then later, the Babylonians named her Ishtar. So sometimes you see Ishtar and Inanna used interchangeably. Inanna was the ancient Sumerian goddess of love, fertility, and sensuality, of truth and feminine power. And this lineage continued then throughout the Egyptian timelines and ancient Greek, the ancient Egyptian through Isis, ancient Greek through Aphrodite, and many others. And this is the lineage that I follow, and that I would say Magdalene and the Marys and all the other beautiful archetypes and embodiments of Venus that we see throughout so many different traditions and countries and cultures. And her association with the rose is as old as her mythology. And I'll share more about that in a moment. But, Inanna was worshipped from ancient times as this embodiment of Venus, the rose and the queen of heaven. And Venus is this deeply powerful consciousness emanating the rose codes of love and beauty and pure source, which is obviously very beautiful to be working with and tuning into. As I say, in ancient Greeks, then she was known as Aphrodite, the goddess of love, of beauty, and sensuality. So you'll see these same themes, same words been used for each of these emanations of Venus. And in the ancient Greek culture and mythology, she's born of the primordial waters of the sea, rising up naked and beautiful, birthed from the protective seashell. And you'll see more of the shells anchored in here as symbols and remembrances of Venus as well. And like the egg and like the shell, when life is born from the inside out, when the egg is cracked from the inside out, life is born. And this is a reference as well to the cosmic egg teachings of Magdalene. And what we see in a lot of these beautiful ancient Greek depictions of Aphrodite is this beautiful sensuality and, you know, reverence of the physical body, and the depth that brings us into the depth of presence in any one moment to feel joy and pleasure, and to the subtle sensory awareness of being alive and deeply connected to not only ourselves but our holy body that we inhabit. Aphrodite, in its etymology, in its original meaning, is said to come from the Greek aphros word for foam, again a nod to her rising from the waters and the foam of the sea. And also it's said that, you know, perhaps it even goes further back to the Phoenician word, the Assyrian word for Ishtar. So again, bringing us back into the further step back into ancient Sumerian. And you'll see here beside the pictures of Aphrodite, these beautiful symbols. And these are from the ancient Mayan lineage. And I won't speak on this with authority because it's not my lineage to speak about, but I just wanted to share with it, but because a lot of the times we think of this Venus lineage as being more maybe the Middle East, but it was been remembered across the world, and here we see it been remembered extensively through the ancient Mayans and the Americas. So the ancient Mayans, they had like extensive recordings of Venus and her orbit and future astrological alignments, and in their beautiful intricate calendars and teachings. And these are said to be recorded in the Dresden Codex, this ancient text, and it's actually, I think it's thought to be one of the oldest surviving texts from the Americas. Obviously, so much was destroyed there, but the ancient Mayans recorded many archetypal expressions of Venus over her 8-year period, which I'll speak to in a minute. Excuse me. And this again, it highlights like when we work with Venus and the lineage of the Magdalene, the lineage of the Rose, this beautiful lineage of the feminine, the archetypes and the wisdom of the body, the wisdom of expression, the wisdom of our relationships, it really comes back to that again and again and again. So it's not really to even be, you know, obsessed or really tied to the emanations or the physical representations or the physical beings who were, you know, teachers of this lineage. It's to really remember that when we tune into the archetypal expressions and the symbols, that we can really deepen into our understanding and guidance and wisdom that's been offered through this relationship with Venus, of beauty, of love, of union, of grace, of all these beautiful attributes that she shares with us. And I did also want to include this beautiful image from one of our sacred sites here in Ireland, because I also feel deep weavings with Venus in the sacred sites in Ireland, and I've received that many times in my connection to the land here, that a lot of the sacred sites are ancient Venus temples, and I won't share much about that now because it's a story for another day, but I will share that again, and I just wanted to plant that seed that the Venusian mysteries, I feel, are very much held in the remembrance of the land here, that deep connection with the sacred sovereign heart mysteries and that ripple, you know, of the Venus teachings. So that's a bit of the mythology, a little bit about the astrology, which I'll come back to again. These are beautiful images of constellations that are connected with Venus. So Venus is said in astrology to be the ruler of, or I prefer it to be the word guide. Venus is the guide of the signs of Taurus, which is an earth sign, and Libra, which is an air sign. And worth and worthiness is a huge theme for both of these signs. And other themes include the feminine, the body, balance, harmony, wealth, truth, security, pleasure, relationships. With Taurus, it's kind of like, do I know my worth? And with Libra, it's like, do I see the worth in other people? So again, you see the themes of Venus very present here. And then the bottom image there is the constellation of Pisces, which is a water element, and Venus is said to be exalted in Pisces. So when a sign is exalted, it's said that, you know, it's in its happiest, most comfortable space and place, and it's in its highest power. And Pisces is the symbol of the great ocean, which again brings us back to that understanding or first image that we saw there of the birth of Venus from the oceans. So That symbol of the great ocean, the deep feminine mysteries are, I feel, and many feel this as well, is that they are as deep as the oceans, and here we remember and have so many stories of the Selkies and the shapeshifters and the whales, these beautiful water beings that remember so much of the primordial mysteries of life. And only Venus, the feminine, can bring us into the deepest levels of our own conscious and subconscious, deep into the underworld, which has all but been forgotten, dismissed, and silenced, and or desecrated and distorted. Forgot the word there. Because only really within these dark black mysteries lies the codes of life, of creation, and of the deepest connection of heavens and earth. And mothers know this, lovers know this, artists know this, and they know these deep dark mysteries more than anyone, because in the dark we can only move and weave from the deepest sensory attunement. We have to be in our body, right? It's this purely instinctual and embodied gnosis that is felt rather than thought through the mind or taught by a teacher. When we go into the deep mysteries of the ocean and of the feminine and of the waters, it's in the body. It can't be anything but in the body. It's intuited. It's the somatic. It's where the somatic and the celestial meet, through the sacred waters and rivers and oceans of the body. So I love Venus in Pisces. My Venus is in Pisces. It's a beautiful way to connect in with Venus as well. And maybe it would be a nice thing for you as well to see where your Venus is in your chart, in what sign it's in, and what it is offering for you on your journey in this spin of life that you're in. The next piece that I wanted to share is this beautiful Renaissance image, and I'm going to speak a little bit now about the symbols and the symbolisms and the symbolism and the glyphs that are associated with the feminine, with Venus specifically. So symbols and glyphs, they are so powerful because they bring us into the breadth and depth of our consciousness, right? So they kind of help us to guide us back into that real the depth of consciousness that we have available to us, right? So like in dreams, we can take great meaning from the symbols and the placement of these symbols, or the emotions that are there, the interaction with these symbols. And from that, then we can gather much deeper and fuller meaning of what is being shared in any one moment, and why. And the Renaissance saw a huge surge and rebirth of creative expression, right? And we see this sharing of deep primordial truths via art. And oftentimes that was in defiance of, the powers and the government and the governed powers of governance at the time. And again, we still see that to this day, like artist expression. They're so powerful and so evocative, but they're also kind of hidden and cloaked in layers of mystery of interpretation. And it's so beautiful that we can interpret what we are seeing and perceiving at any one moment, and that is really bringing us back into the full wholeness of our intelligence, of our innate wisdom. Is like we're constantly perceiving, and are we actually tuning into the symbols and the mysteries of life that are unfolding and being unveiled for us in every one moment. And we can only do that when we're really connected with our body and our being. Similarly, actually, or interestingly, I should say, around the, at the time of the Renaissance, or within a couple of maybe 100 years on either side, I can't remember now the exact date, but the tarot cards were also being created right at this time. And again, they call us to look for the deeper meaning through the lens of colors and placement and symbols and, relationships, and just bringing us into the deep psyche that, and the deeper consciousness, to our full consciousness, to our whole consciousness that is available to us all the time. And I really believe that our ancient ancestors were more deeply connected to their whole human expression and abilities because they used these pictographic languages and symbols, right? They traced the constellations within the body. We see that in the meridians and the Vedic teachings of, and Ayurvedic teachings of, and yogic tradition of the meridians, and this huge body of work around our meridians, these constellations, these rivers within the body. They also did it with the star, the star alignments and the constellations in the sky, and then even on the land as well, through the ley lines and song lines. And they perceived that the sacred geometries in all of life, the frequency emitted, and the web of connection and communication present in every one moment. And from this, then this is where they were living and breathing and being and, understanding life through. which we seem to have forgotten a lot in more recent times. And a beautiful quote that I use a lot from Anodea Judith, who's an incredible book. What's it called? Eastern Mind, Western something, I can't remember now off the top of my head. But it's a beautiful book, a huge body of work around the chakras. And she says that symbols are an immediate whole brain way of communicating about deep archetypal energies, which is just the tip of her wisdom. So here's a few more symbols with Inanna, older images of Inanna, the connection with the with the miraculous medal. I'm not going to go into that now. We go more deeply into that in our journey with the Rose and the Venus journey. But yeah, just maybe receive those images and see what you see and feel what you feel. And in these following images now, what you're going to see is these sacred geometries, right? These sacred mathematical geometries woven in all that embodies life and all that life embodies. They're, these can be seen in Venus's orbit, which I'll show you again in a moment. So this cyclical spiral expression of life, of creation, it's seen in everything, right? Everything that's alive. And these show the precision and intricacy of the intelligence of creation, right, at the source of our creation. And these geometries have been mapped and measured, and they're known through different names, maybe as the golden ratio or the Fibonacci sequence, and they're found everywhere in nature and then replicated in architecture and art, and have been for a long, long time. So when, say, the architecture there of the ancient pyramids, all these geometries and understandings of the equations that were used to create these big massive temples often refer back to these sacred numbers that are connected with Venus as well, and their own sacred sites and other sacred sites around the world as well. And they're even still used to this day apparently as well. Ariel Gutman, as I said, she wrote the book Venus Star Rising, and she goes into greater detail into this if you wanted to have more of a look and see. But you see that beautiful spiraling, and you see it within either as an art form, when you zoom right into a beautiful piece of nature, or when you zoom right out again, you see this cyclical spiral of life and creation that's there. And there's a few more beautiful images there. We see again and again and again, and like symbols and glyphs and mandalas and knotwork that we find here in these aisles. They all open us up to our interpretation of something, right? So we are called into extricating deeper meaning and purpose, but because it's an image, we interpret it much deeper in the body, as it's remembered in our experience, in our cellular memory, in our inner waters. So really, we could say that we're being called, when we look at these images and remember these images for what they really are, we're being called to open our perception rather than just to be, told what to see or what the answer is. And this is remembered through the oracles of Delphi, who would never just give an answer to the questions asked. They would offer a reflection and more questions for deeper self-exploration or contemplation or, exploration. When we come to our own conclusion to something, we will remember it forever. This is something I remember we're teaching as well. It's like we can, and we probably remember this through our own experience of school and learning, is that, so much information is just kind of poured on top of us, and in the hope that some of it will go in, and we have all these different ways of seeing and individual ways of seeing and perceiving the world. And oftentimes it's just kind of all this information is thrown on us instead of us, perceiving it through the body, perceiving it through the different lenses that we are here to see through, and these beautiful, intricate ways that individually we're here to see the world. So a few more symbols of Venus on the next slide here. So you'll see up here, this is the symbol, the astrological symbol for Venus, very like the Ankh. And as I said, we have physical human representations of Venus as well, and the divine feminine through Inanna and Ishtar, Isis, Mary, and many others as well. The symbol of the Ankh is this beautiful, beautiful ancient symbol. It's found in Egyptian lineage, and for me, it always reminds me like of a handheld mirror, and it's kind of, reflecting back to me, who am I, and am I really looking at who I truly am, or am I receiving this image from an external place. It's also said to be a beautiful representation of union, of the intersection between the masculine and the feminine, spirit and matter, electrical and magnetic elements and aspects of life. And it really, it reminds us of the potential for creation when sacred communion is remembered and experienced. And similarly to the cross as well, which has taken on a different meaning. But, it's this intersection of spirit and matter. And Magdalene teaches a lot about this in her reflections of the new, which is something we go into deeper in the work with her. Another symbol of Venus is the rose. You'll see why Venus is connected with the rose when I show you the orbit of Venus in the next slide or two. And again, similarly, the rose has very similar themes and threads of union, devotion, purity, wisdom, and that spiral heart gnosis, and of course of love as well. This image here, you see this beautiful flower. She's so gorgeous. That's myrtle, and I just love, just even look at that image for a moment. Like, it's just this beautiful, pure white flowers or petals, and then this burst of golden light, these emanating rays of light from the center. It's just so gorgeous. Myrtle is a gorgeous one to work with anyway, whether it's energetically or as an oil or as a flower. She's connected with the paradise of romance, devotion, beauty, love. And in the Miraphor tradition, Miraphor is the ancient sacred oil tradition. She's the gatekeeper oil, right? So that means that she is this guardian, this guide of when we're traversing on our journey or when we're journeying through different spaces and times and realms. And she guides us on that spiritual growth. She's really supportive of helping us to sharpen our vision, to see actual pure truth. And in ancient Egypt, myrtle was seen as and associated with the other world and the eternal life, again, that kind of connection with the different realms and dimensions of expression and life. She's connected with Aphrodite. In mythology, there's stories of her there with that as well, and the Holy Feminine, and she was often placed in bridal bouquets as well. And from a medicinal kind of botanical teaching, she is great for the skin, right? So again, she's that protector, that guide, like our skin is, for our journey in life. And she really just is this beautiful soul healer, and enhances our intuition and creativity. And she's a beautiful, phenomenal being to work with. Very obviously connected with Venus and all the different pieces of that. We see the swans are connected to Venus too. The lovely the Venus of Waldorf there, or Willendorf, I think it's called. The dove, the holy Shekinah associated with Venus, and the ascent and descent of Inanna, and that beautiful ascension and ascending and descending nature of life. The ups and the downs, the rising and the falling, whether that's within the body or on a bigger scale as well. And then the snake there as well, the shell there too. The snake has always been connected with one of the oldest images and symbols of the primordial feminine. Obviously, it's been demonized so much in the last couple of thousand years, but it is deeply remembered in the ancient teachings, and even in our own lineage here in Ireland. The snakes were said to have been, run out of Ireland by St. Patrick. But the snake was really the symbol of the Druids, who were connected to the primordial mother principles and teachings, and as an image and symbol of energy and of that energy. So that's what he really actually drove out, because there was no snakes in Ireland. So let's go a little bit further into the teachings, or even the astrological understandings of Venus and how she moves. So in this image here, you'll see this is the image that the Venus's orbit, right? So this is an 8-year cycle of the image that she creates. So straight away you can see the sacred geometry there, this beautiful image of the sacred geometry that she creates simply by her orbit and connection with the earth and the sun, and her dance with the earth and the sun. And Ariel Gutman, she shares that Venus is like our celestial heartbeat, this metronome for life and living, from our heart center and from wholeheartedness. And some of the ancients believed that as a celestial body, she was the one who was guiding the sun into morning and evening cycles, because she to herself goes on this journey of as a morning star and as an evening star. And I'll share a little bit more about that now in a moment. But she takes this journey as a morning star for about 9.5 months, and then as an evening star for 9.5 months. And yeah, she's just, you can see, like, even in that image, there's like cycles within cycles. Of course, that's like us and our lives. And as I said before, just this culmination of the maths, the numerology, the cosmology, the astrology, the astronomy, geometry, the symbols, all of this interconnects in with Venus, and it can be really seen in this image, I feel. And you've probably maybe even seen this image been used before with different people. It's so beautiful. I love even just watching it. You can take so much from it. So in the next few slides, I'm going to show you and share with you a bit of the numbers. So I don't want to overload you with the numbers, but what you'll hear and see hopefully is this again, importance of certain numbers and the repetition of certain numbers coming up again and again. But it's just a glimpse of the intricacies of connection that's been offered by Venus. So in this image here, you'll see this is Venus's 8-year cycle, right? So this one is from AstroSeek, and it's from 2020 to 2028. So you can hopefully still see that beautiful central point. Actually, I'll just show that here. So here, this is why we say the rose of Venus, right? Because it creates this 5-petaled star, or 5-petaled rose, this 5-petaled flower. And also why you'll see in Ariel Gutman's work why she calls it the 5-pointed star, and the star points of Venus. So it's an 8-year cycle with the 5 petals, right? So these blue lines represent the morning star journey. And as I say, so let's start back where we are currently. So last August in 2023, the morning star was born, and it was in the sign of Leo, and it's in the star point of Leo. Okay, so what happened was we started to see her in the morning, and over this blue line takes about 9.5 months, about 40 weeks, for her to journey that, right? So she journeys this and moves all the way around here, and then she moves right now actually it's just beginning the evening star journey in the sign of Gemini. Okay, and again it'll be 9.5 months, and it'll go until it meets back in here at the Aries morning star. So it goes for 8-year cycles. This is a whole 8-year cycle. There's the 5 petals within, and then there's the 5 cycles of 5 evening stars and 5 morning stars. Okay, so 8 by 5 is 40, and then the journey for each morning star and each evening star is about 40 weeks. Okay, so again that repetition of 40 there. Within that 8-year cycle, there's 5 cycles, as I say, of the 5 petals, so of the 5 morning and evening star journeys. And the evening and morning star journey takes about 19 months, about 584 days. And again, that's 40 weeks and 40 weeks. And again, 40 weeks being this transformational number, we see 40 weeks and 40 days through so many different stories and mythologies and lineages. 40 weeks for gestation for a human baby to be born. We see the 40 days in the desert with Jesus. We see 40 days for a yogic sadhana practice. So a lot of similarities, and a lot of this 40-day recognition across so many different spaces and places. Then we see the 5 petals. So let me just bring you back to the 5 petals for a second. So again, they're the 5 petals. So with the 5 petals, like 5, I suppose just to speak into it a little bit in terms of 5 and the 5th harmonic. In sound healing, the 5th harmonic is C and G, and it's called perfect balance, right? So it brings the body back into perfect balance. So this whole journey of Venus is bringing us back into equilibrium, back into harmony, back into balance. And this is what Venus offers us again and again and again. And similarly to, I have drawn this comparison in our Irish tradition. We had in our ancient Irish tradition, we had the 4 provinces of Ireland, and they would come together in the centre. And the centre being the 5th province, Media, at Ulnamer at Ishnach. And at this central point, this heart, sacred heart of Ireland, the sacred ceremonial centre of Ireland at Ishnach, this is where they would come together in council, in communion, in celebration, in reverence, and in right relationship. And for me, this is what we're really remembering with this 5 petaled harmonic, this 5th harmonic, with this remembrance of the 5th province, the 5th realm. And even in kind of New Age teachings, we see this with the 5th dimension, right? And a lot of times we seek outside of ourselves, or we think we need to get outside of ourselves to reach this 5th harmonic. But really the 5th harmonic is this balance and harmony within the whole being. And when we are in balance and in harmonics within the whole being, this 5th realm or space opens up to us, which is really this beautiful essence and space of divine union and communion, which again I feel Mary speaks about, Magdalene speaks about with her teachings of the new. So I hope you're with me so far. This is a beautiful image. I love this one because it's quite easy to understand then the petal, let's say, of a cycle of the morning star phase and the evening star phase. So this is coming from again last August, and it will continue up to next March 25. So last August we would have started here with Venus as a morning star, and she would have been making her descent all the way down into the underworld, where she will dip out of view on the horizon for 60 to 90 days, and then she rises again as the evening star, and she makes her way back up here, and then she'll go into her retrograde space and time, and then again, right, it starts again. So cycles and cycles and cycles within cycles. So I'm going to show you the Venus star point in a moment. So the Venus star point that we are currently in now is Venus in Gemini. So you see here, this Gemini. This is the cycle of Venus in Gemini. This is the overarching Gemini cycle, and we've just come out of the overarching Leo, Venus star point Leo, right? But that's not to say that she doesn't have her inner circles and inner cycles of moving through the different zodiac signs as she moves. So for example, I'll show you here where's 2003? Okay, 23. So as she moved on her journey as a morning star, she would have moved through the constellations. So if you can imagine that all the constellations are here, she would have been moving through them as she moved around, and all the way up to here where she is around now. And every, I think it's 3 to 4 weeks, she moves through a different sign. So she would have went from Leo down to Virgo, down to Libra, and all the way down here, which you can see on this one here. So we had Leo, down to Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and so on and so forth. And then as she moves, each month she meets the moon, and this is what we're seeing here at the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mark. It's called the Rose Gate, and this is where we have been journeying, and where we have been coming together in circle to see and perceive what's going on with her as she meets each Rose Gate. And within the mythology of Inanna, and as we follow the story of Inanna, each of these gates represents each of the 7 gates that she had to engage with as she made her descent into the underworld. So again, we have the 7 gates that Inanna moves through. We have the 7 chakra points. So as we move through those 7 rose gates, we connect in with a different chakra each time. And 7 being a number associated with Magdalene and mastery, and the Pleiades, and so many other things as well. So let me show you the next one. Here's another image of that. You can see the sun, you can see the earth in the center, and as she's making her way, this is a longer cycle, up to 2030. And then here's the work of Ariel Gutman. So as I said, here we find ourselves just about to start the Venus star point in Gemini. And within the full Venus rose cycle and orbit, we can see these beautiful stars and star points. Okay, and this is where Ariel Gutman's work kind of comes in. What we can see from this one here, where are we? Gemini. So we're in Gemini now. And from this point, from the edge to the edge, it takes about 100 years for the Venus to move, and for the star point to move the full breadth of each of those outer kind of zodiac star points, you could say. So we're coming to the end of the Scorpio one. The Scorpio one would have started in the 1920s, which is it's like, I love Ariel Gutman's work because she speaks into the kind of the greater themes that are happening at that time. And as the Venus star point in Scorpio began in the early 1920s, and Scorpio being like, the depths and the darkness, and maybe the ickiness, or the depth of our conscious awareness and our deep psyche, and what that holds in its shadow and in its beautiful gifts as well, obviously. But at the start of the 1920s, we had the advent of like deep psychological work, and Freud and Jung and all these guys bringing their work to the fore, and that has continued for the last 100 years. And again, I think Leo, the Leo star point started in the late 80s, and even with like Leo, the lion and the hare, and the hare in the 80s. So she just brings so many gorgeous comparisons, and she sees these collective trends that have happened within that as well. And within her work, you can map where your 5 points of your Venus star points were when you were born very easily. And then you can see the interaction between them and the interaction between relationships. Maybe say mine is in Scorpio, it's going to be moving into Libra now in the next few years, which is it's not that common because, as I say, it takes nearly over 100 years for it to move in. So usually when you're locked in for a while. But mine will be moving into Libra. But what I can do is I can look up in her book what the Scorpio Venus point brings, and the elements of that, the interaction with other points on the wheel as well, for my connections within my relationship. So there's just a huge host of information there that I really highly recommend exploring further with her. And she shares a lot of podcasts and videos on YouTube as well for you to see there too. So I'm coming to a close now. There's a few more things that I wanted to share before I do. As I say, Venus has this beautiful ascending and descending journey of the morning star as the morning star and as the evening star. And Inanna is, the mythic guide in that as the embodiment of Venus. So here's an image of Venus as a morning star. And I just wanted to share with you a piece that I wrote and shared with the women that were on the journey with me in the last cycle. So yeah, just sit back and relax and enjoy this piece and let it land in your heart and in your body. Venus as a morning star is on a journey of descent. And as we descend, we step onto the heroine's path of initiation. While the hero's journey is an external quest for retrieval, the heroine's journey is an inward one of remembrance and restoration. We too are remembering and restoring the high holy heart within the inner temple, the body. Inanna's ancient epic reminds us that we descend, as we descend, we must release the armor and endowments that we accumulate. We must shed something at each gate, each chakra that we perceive equates to our worth, our value, our truth, or our power, pruning back the deadheads and excess to ensure mighty growth in the next growth phase. We are asked to hand it over without question, because the deeper wisdom is always in the emptying. We are asked to sacrifice it, but not sacrifice it in what most perceive as self-denial, but sacrifice it in its original meaning, to make sacred, to return to its sacred expression, to its true nature. Each gate we meet, each chakra we reconnect with within, we are invited to shed, to empty all that we have become reliant and dependent on. And it is very interesting that the etymology of the word to empty is at leisure, unoccupied, freedom from fear, containing nothing. We accumulate so much from our world, cultures, families, lineages, experiences. Maybe Venus is guiding us to follow her example in clearing out, in emptying that which we do not need to carry, to let that ego piece die, to lay it to rest in the soil and rise once again from the composted, fertile ground where all life is born. If we were to continue this awareness and wisdom of our rose journey, we too could continue to die and be reborn in truth, harmony, beauty, and union. In our descending journey, as in death, we cannot bring anything with us, not our wealth, not our riches, not our accolades. We meet death as Inanna meets Erishka Gal, naked and open in her full humanness. Erishka Gal mourns and grieves and rages at the separation from our whole, holy, primal and primordial selves that seems to be accepted and encouraged in the upper world. Erishka Gal is feared and demonized, like all female characters, exiled and banished from their tribes and communities. The descending journey is a journey about consent of what we are accepting and settling for. It is a journey about how faith and trust in ourselves and true nature and that of everyone else. This is a journey about enriching our lives, making it truly beautiful again. And as Carly Mountain speaks of in her beautiful book as well, she says that the heroine's journey is so fortifying because after shedding, grieving, facing our worst fears and getting to know our patterns and bodies better, we discover a new level of safety within ourselves, a holding deeper than we ever felt. The rising tests these roots as we step forward. And now to share a little bit about the evening star energy. In the underworld, we are consciously conceived, right, and birthed by our own heart and body, having been made the courageous and careful descent deep into the wisdom of our holy body, temple. The Virgin births the immaculately conceived child of the divine. Virgin, a woman whole unto herself, full of her own life force and potential. In the rebirth and rising, we get to explore, experience, and embody the new parts of ourselves, our new voice, our new energy, our new visions, our new perspectives, our new values, our new body. As with all new beginnings, there can be equal measures of excitement and trepidation, of bliss and grief. And in the rising, the day-to-day discernment and observation of all the subtle words, thoughts, patterns, behaviours, masks, call us into greater awareness and attention. Here is where we prove to ourselves, and our nervous systems especially, our commitment to this updated version of ourselves, and our faith in our whole selves. We call in the support and the wisdom of our journey thus far in the face of the alluring old patterns and programs as they will come up, and we are patient and compassionate as we learn how to be, move and live with this more whole version of ourselves. We continue to tend to the garden, trust the process, and keep the faith. And the final thing that I wanted to share with you before I leave you, but one final piece, is the different elements and energies of Venus morning star and Venus evening star. So as I said, we're just about to embark here now. It's the end of July, nearly the end of July, and we've just started the evening star phase. So the morning star journey has completed for this wheel, this cycle. But the morning star energy is that of the light bearer, the initiator, and the heart warrior. She's like the earth goddess, and like the energy of Taurus, she craves companionship and connection in right relationship. And she's pregnant with creative visions and expression. She brings the energy of the sunrise, hopeful, exciting, and adventurous, and all these beautiful new beginnings. She is the activist who feels a deep rage of separation and is courageous in her communication, you could say as well, and in her expression, right? And then the shadow of that can sometimes look like maybe immaturity, impulsivity, maybe reactivity, and even possibly the hopeless romantic. And then the evening star Venus, you can see some of the words that are shared there. The evening star energy is that of the benevolent lover, right? And the wise one. And she is this beautiful sky goddess. And like the energy of Libra, she has taken and distilled the lessons of experience from the journey of descent into the underworld. And now she responds deliberately, consciously, and intentionally with this new harmonious perspective, this new wise perspective. And as the evening star is in her furthest distance from the earth, she has this ear to the celestial realms, and she hears the whispers of the night sky, and she hears the whispers of the dreamscape. And she can receive and share this otherworldly perspective, this rich imagination and vision, but in a very grounded, wise way, right? So being very connected to it, but not being consumed by it. She is the yin to the yang, right, of the morning star energy, and can be quite private or introverted. And like the crone, she knows how to work smarter, yeah, not harder, and maybe even like live smarter, live in this beautiful harmonious rhythm, as this, instead of being fast paced and out of sync with the natural rhythms of herself and of life. Her shadow in this expression can be maybe ungrounded or lost in fantasy, lost in the ethereal realms. So, as we move now for the next 9.5 months, you can tune into the energy of Venus as an evening star, and you can, like receive and like turn on and turn up your evening star qualities that are so openly available to us, and a greater sense in the celestial realms and in the in everything really, because Venus, as I say, connects in with so many things within our relationships. We can bring in that wise wisdom, that gentle, harmonious rhythm with life and with ourselves. And ultimately, I suppose, to finish, like, following the cycles of Venus calls us to journey and return to our heart and our heart center and wisdom of our whole being, right, of our whole holy being. And when I first started this journey, I wrote down this prayer, this invocation, and it was know thyself, love thyself, and be thyself. And I didn't know it at the time, or maybe I did in another level, but I didn't know the significance of the know thyself piece within the mystery schools. But how well do we really know ourselves? How often do we introduce ourselves as what we are rather than who we are? And maybe sometimes it's really even hard to describe or discern who we are, because our identity is often a creation of our external world and who we think we should be, or who it is safe to be, who we are expected to be even, and who we have to be maybe because of the circumstances and the environments we find ourselves within. How can we be sovereign beings and, in authority and autonomy of ourselves and of our lives with all of these restrictions and limitations? I don't think we can. So working with Venus supports us to kind of bring us back into that harmonious truth and deeper primordial truth of who we really are. And as I said, I didn't realize at the time, but upon entering the ancient mystery schools, above each of the thresholds was written, know thyself. And to really know ourselves, it takes devotion. It takes vows of commitment and reverence of the path to continue to meet all parts of ourselves in love, right? In compassion, in peace, in grace. And no matter how long we've been on this path of knowing ourselves, knowing thyself, we continue to meet parts of ourselves that have been dictated by others, or that dictate our expression now, but they were never ours in the first place. We assumed them and we consumed them, and we thought they were who we were and who we are. But when we can make the time and space to reflect and contemplate on this, we can layer by layer peel back these collective imprints and projections. And as we do so, we deepen into our connection with ourselves. And we deepen into our roots, which enable us to expand beyond the limited mind of conformity. And I suppose here we can envision the possibility and the potential of our true expression in nature. We can adjust, tweak, pivot, reorient ourselves in our truths and our true expression, our true nature once again and again and again and again and again, because it's going to continue to happen, right? We're going to continually be peeling back these layers. We then can obviously know ourselves and love ourselves and be ourselves, which is what the initial prayer was, which I think is just very powerful. For me, this is what the Venus lineage and journeying with the Venusian teachings and teachers can offer us. So maybe you're feeling this call of this ancient lineage of the primordial mother and the solar feminine Christ teachings, and the embodiment of the Christ light and being. And if you are, just know that you're not alone. There's lots and lots of us remembering and working with these beautiful energies. And yeah, we're ready. We're Tomwood Ray. We are ready to restore this more fully in our lives. So maybe you would like to more deeply explore this. And if so, get in touch and see what I have coming up. And for now, I'm going to leave you and say goodbye and blessings to you all.